John, do you want to bat lead off on this, or would you prefer that I go first? Because I know we got one guy each and one guy on each side of the ball. So which would you prefer, my friend?
I will lead off because it is a nice segue from the position that we just talked about, because Jermaine Burton, of these guys he's going to be competing with in terms of playing time, maybe the guy he's most directly going to compete against is none other than Charlie Jones. Just for full disclosure, I remember in that 2023 draft, I did no pre-draft work on Charlie Jones at all. And one of the reasons why is because he was one of the oldest players in that rookie class. And the Bengals historically have not drafted a lot of older wide receivers. But of course, he was the first of two drafted that year. Andre Yoshivas was the second one. He was a little bit younger, but not too much younger. But Charlie Jones was like a 24-year-old guy who was a 6-year player in college, went from Buffalo to Iowa all the way to Purdue. He really balled out with Aiden O'Connell, who he went to grade school with, I believe. So there was the connection there. But when you watched him on film at Purdue, like, he looked to be a complete, total fit in this offense as someone who could just reel in some back shoulder throws on those deep vertical routes. And he had the ability to potentially play in the slot and also return kickoffs. He just added a lot of immediate value for an offense that needed an eventual replacement for Tyler Boyd in the slot. Now we're here 2 years later. Charlie Jones is 26 years old. You know how many receptions he has, Anthony, in his career? Eight receptions at 26 years old. Jamar Chase is like 24. He's got like 800. So, I mean, it's not the greatest comparison, but like at a certain point, you know, you reach your physical prime in the NFL probably around where Charlie Jones is right now. And he's only in his third year in the league. He's only played 19 games. And part of that is because he's been injured a lot. He's suffered with, a thumb injury last year. He was out for most thumb injury in his rookie year. He was out for most of last year after he had the best play of his career, which was the 100-yard kickoff return against the Cleveland Browns. And he just hasn't been on the field. We finally saw him back on the field, I think, this past week at OTAs, and he was finally cleared and everything. So, he's been a guy that's done some things in practice in this time of the offseason. But once he gets to, the preseason and in the start of the season, things unfortunately start to break down for him. He suffered what looked to be a really scary injury right before the preseason began last year. And luckily that wasn't anything long-term. He was able to start the season, but man, only 11 games his rookie year, only 8 games last year for a team that needed ancillary options at the receiver position. He unfortunately let those opportunities get away from him for things that were just out of his control. Now you're entering year 3. You have barely any production on your side. You're looking at wide receiver, despite, again, the fact that they didn't really add anyone at the position outside of undrafted free agents. But there's nothing really stopping guys like, Jamoy Mays or Jordan Moore or the other undrafted receiver that's slipping my mind from Oklahoma State. There's nothing stopping those guys from eclipsing a guy like Charlie Jones on the depth chart at this point, because, again, he still provides potential value as your specialist, as your kickoff or your punt returner, because he's done that in the past. But it really is just a what have you done for me lately type of league, and he just hasn't really done much lately for this team. So as much promise that he had, coming out of the draft as a 4th-round pick, a great athlete for his size, like, he just really needs to stay healthy and actually do something substantial this year, more than just playing a handful of games and barely be involved in the offense. And he just really needs to stay healthy more than anything, because if his third year is a lot like his first 2 years, you just can't really envision him sticking around for much longer.
Here are a couple of concerning things with him, aside from the paltry 8 catches over 2 seasons. They were for 69 yards, John, which is an 8.6 yard per reception average. It's not like he's popping the occasional big play and the health was the key factor, and it's just the wow is it now. The kickoff return, of course, and there were he's shown electricity at times to be a solid kickoff return, punt return guy. The other facet is the drop, and granted, again, this is attributed to injuries. 7 catches as a rookie, 1 last year, just 1 in his second year. That is really, really concerning. And a lot of times, again, going back to that 8.6 yard per reception average, he was a slot guy and he'd do a short little out route and it was like a 2-3 yard play, right? I mean, we saw that a couple times and it just wasn't anything complicated, wasn't anything really exciting. I still have high hopes for this guy as a complementary weapon, but he's got to stay healthy. And the better that Jermaine Burton does, and the more it seems like his head is on straight, the worse it is to me for Charlie Jones. And you kind of hoped, yes, that he would take that Tyler Boyd role to the next level or that sort of thing, but also maybe even be a Trenton Irwin type replacement where, just a guy that can get you a handful of touchdowns a game, a few hundred yards a year, and 20, 30 catches, and just be, that guy that helps you win. It's a slower game for Jamar Chase T. Higgins, and he's the guy that kind of is the player of the game, so to speak, for one or two games and get you that win. And he has just not been that. So I'm in agreement with you again. I mean, it's not a high pick, but I think they really liked him when they picked him. And we're now entering year 3, critical year, coming off injuries, and now he's got to show that he can still be an electric kick punt returner, but also be somewhat of a contributor. Now, I will say there was a caveat, and granted, it's really only one that I can think of off the top of my head. I think it was the year where Joe Burrow had the calf issue, and Jones was streaking way deep down the field, and it was like, a half a yard out of his reach type of thing. Would have been a beautiful touchdown. That would have obviously padded some stats, and but that's just one play. And though it was missed, I mean, you think about it, but that's just still one play, and there has to be more on display by him.
I think it's also a testament to how, teams may have plans for these guys when they're drafted, but those plans can immediately change, because it made all the sense in the world to have Jones be the eventual Tyler Boyd replacement. And then when Jermaine Burton was drafted, the whole thing was going on with T. Higgins in this future. It made sense for how he was almost like prepped to be, T. Higgins' replacement. Now it's almost like Jermaine Burton could just be the Charlie Jones replacement, because, Burton kind of took his role as the kickoff returner after Jones got hurt, and he showed some promise there. So those two, I think, are going to be directly competing against each other for a role that's only going to be more important, considering they just moved the touchback, I believe, forward another 5 yards, which is only going to incentivize teams more to put kickoffs in play, which is only going to make kickoff returners more important. So that's the best chance that Charlie Jones has to not only make the team, but to be active and to steal, at least a decent sized role away from a guy who was drafted a year afterwards. So those two, I think, are going to be locked in and competing against each other. And it's good for Burton that he has like a clear goal just to compete against someone. And, for Charlie Jones, again, year 3 is typically a make or break year for a lot of players, and he's no exception.
The value swing of kickoff returners over the past handful of years has been wild, man. It was like super valuable, non-existent. Now it's valuable again. So, someone's going to have to step up. Who knows? Maybe the Bengals, maybe if they look at Burton and they say he's not great at punt returns, but he's good at kickoff returns, and vice versa for Charlie Jones. And then there's value for both of those guys, and they think they can take the next step as receivers too. So maybe that, there are roles for each of them, both as returners and receivers. We will see. But yeah, Charlie Jones, a guy I like, but there's, the injury thing has really hurt his career, no pun intended. And it needs to, he needs to take that next step, especially in year 3.